Hello, everybody. It's Mary O'Sullivan. I would like to talk to you today about resumes and cover letters. And this is one of the sessions of our 3 sessions to how to find a job or pivot your career in the new normal. So we're going to review for a second. We talked the last couple of weeks about how you present yourself out in the world, and that's called social presence. So you have to build your Facebook personal page, LinkedIn profile page, and your personal website. And there are any number of things you can put on your website. You can put your resume, you can put a short video, you can certainly put photographs, you can put more information about your education or your certifications. But that all should be also on the LinkedIn profile page, which is very important, as well as any other social media that you are using. We also talked a lot about interviewing skills and how to act on a phone screen, how to project your voice, your tone, how close you're sitting to the phone, making sure that the person on the other end can hear you clearly. And also video, we talked about making sure that your technology was working, test it out before you get on the video interview. And actually you want to maybe get on a few minutes earlier so that you already are connected when the interviewer comes on. And we talked a lot about in-person interviewing, which includes wardrobe, how you sit, not crossing your legs, not moving your body around, sitting straight, leaning in. And also the big topic was the tricky questions that come up. What are your weaknesses? Things like that. Why do you want to work here? That's a tricky question, but that's a legitimate one. If they ask you about weaknesses, you need to turn that around. Ask them what they mean by that. And then one of the techniques that I spent a lot of time talking on was learn to interview the interviewer. So you want to make sure that you're in control of the interview and that you stay strong throughout the entire session, whether it's phone, video, or in person. Don't get nervous and just ask a lot of questions. And the key here is don't ask yes/no questions, ask behavioral questions that start with why, when, where, how, all that type of question. And of course, the most important part of any interaction with any human being is just to relax. So go in there completely relaxed and confident that you're going to get the job. So today we're going to talk about 2 topics. One is how to perfectly ATS proof your resume and how to put a cover letter together. And I really learned a lot when I was researching this topic. One thing that I learned right off the bat is the ATS system is really important. So your resume's job is to get through the ATS and get you in front of the right human being so you can get that interview. So the resume has to be exactly what the ATS is looking for. So what I've learned is 90% of Fortune 500 companies are using resume screening software like ATS systems during their hiring process. They're automated, they have algorithms, so they're easy for the employer to screen people out. They're all over the place. And so for you, it's critical to write an ATS-friendly resume so that your application gets to be seen by human eyes and gets in front of a person. And there's a lot of tricks to that. So your resume has to be plain, believe it or not. So how do you beat the system? Well, 75% of resumes are rejected and never reach the person in charge. Everybody is using some sort of these systems right now as part of their hiring practice. And Often these are really good candidates who are qualified, but the system rejects them because they didn't optimize their keywords and their formatting was off. So you wouldn't think that's a big deal, but as it turns out, with automated tracking systems, the formatting counts and the keyword optimization counts big time. So what does it look like? 3 basic parts to an ATS-friendly resume: precise formatting, keyword optimization, and relevant experience. And the 2 things that are really important there are optimization and experience. And it has to be relevant experience. The format is what actually gets you through to the hiring manager. There is a way I found online to test your resume to see if it is ATS worthy. Just upload your resume to zipjob.com. And of course, that's for free, but then you can hire one of their resume writers. But since you do not know where these people reside, could be China, could be India, could be somewhere in the US, Canada, or the UK, I would go with somebody that you know to help you with your resume, especially when you're trying to avoid being kicked out by an ATS. So how these systems work: when you load up your resume to the ATS, it electronically scans the resume and scores it. It scores your qualifications based on the descriptions that you enter into your resume for that position. And then it ranks the application. And it might only take maybe the top 10 or the top 20. And recruiters really rely heavily on the ATS for their screening process because they get hundreds and hundreds of these for every job. So, big mistake: incorrect formatting. So I was kind of surprised to see this, but I really understand it. The emphasis is on do not get creative with your resume. Don't make it fancy. These do not make it through the ATS. When people see it in person, they love it. It's beautiful. You might want to bring it with you to your interview. It's not going to work with the ATS. Any kind of colored ink, tables, shading, graphics, headers, and footers to make it look like a magazine advertisement is going to be thrown out by the ATS. The big problem is the ATS is a machine, it's an algorithm, and it's unsophisticated. It's not going to be able to pick your resume out from anybody else's. In fact, it's going to kick it out. So you're dealing with a bunch of bots when you upload to an ATS. So how do you fix that? Stay away from graphics. Use just a plain standard format. No tables, no columns. Don't use double columns. No text boxes. No fancy colored ink. No reversed out shading. No lines across the page. No headers or footers. Keep it plain. The second big mistake: missing keywords. Most people have no clue what the keywords are or should be, and everybody who's looking for a job needs to figure this out. People think that there's some kind of magic formula, but there really isn't. You can try scanning your resume into a system like zip.com or zip resume, whatever it was.com, and see if you have the right keywords. But that might not work if your resume gets kicked out, if you're actually sending it to an employer. So you got to understand how it works. It's an algorithm. It's not human. When you upload a resume, it goes through the first scanning process. Then it lands on the recruiter's desk. Those people, the recruiter and the hiring manager, have added in some keywords to search through the applicants. So in order for them to find you, you have to have added those appropriate keywords. This doesn't mean that you copy every word from the job posting and squeeze them into your resume. Try making a list of your job's work tasks. So you go through a number of different job openings that appeal to you. You look for a pattern where employers want all similar specific skills and tasks done. For example, let's say they want a manager who has hired and coached the team. They might be looking for a market research person or somebody with those skills, or want program management experience. It might be knowing a specific software like Salesforce or SAP or PeopleSoft or anything like that. So after you've looked at all those job announcements, then refine your own keyword list. So how do you do it? You add those keywords into your work experience. So when you're writing your sentences about your experience, you want to use the keywords that were used by the job opening. So as you create the details on each job that you've had, you add the appropriate and relevant keywords. So don't just make a big list and then try to force fit them in there. The system isn't going to respond to that. Incorporate the words into the sentence to say something like, served as project manager handling large installation projects from conception through completion. So you want to tell them on the resume something that you've done that relates directly back to the job that you had. If you're a head nurse someplace, you want to make sure that you add that in to the resume if you're applying for a nursing director or head nurse type job. So another big mistake is people leave out the substance. Many people create a generic resume that doesn't stress the skills necessary to get the job, and they think that they keep it generic, that they can use it for any type of position, but that's really not true. If you don't front load your resume with accomplishments and you leave out your relevant keywords, you're never going to make it through. It doesn't look like it has any substance to it. So how do you fix this? This is very important to talk about results that you brought to the table. Accomplishments and results are the most significant part of a resume, and those are the ones that get you through the scan, the keyword scan. So people want to see that you have made a meaningful contribution to your company and how the company ultimately benefited. If you worked in a mailroom, say, and you had a deluge of material coming in, you needed to sort that, you needed to organize it better, you needed to use people better. If you created a process or a tool that did all that and you saved time, 20% maybe, or you were able to reduce hours on that task, that's a benefit to the company. You want to talk about that on your resume. So adding that your actions either made money or delivered cost avoidance or cost savings or time savings or increased productivity, especially if you've created things like process systems or a new design, those are essential to add. So walk yourself back through your job history and start to think about what you did, what accomplishments you had that benefited the company that you were working for. So here's the effective formula if you look at the last part of this chart. What were the actions? And then make note of what were the results. So were you responsible for a $2 million facility refurbishment? So talk about how you did that and then note the results. So there are extra fields that come sometimes at the end of the uploading process, when you upload your resume to their automated system. Some of these systems ask you to fill out other additional fields, and it can feel like you're just repeating everything you put on your resume, but they have a crucial purpose for that ATS system, and they help with vetting your resume and getting it through that system into human hands and in front of human eyes. If you mess up on any of these, your resume can be totally torpedoed. And that's why they're called knockout questions, because if you don't answer them, your resume gets knocked out. So what do you do to fix it? Answer the fields even if you've already put it in your resume and cover letter. Doesn't matter. You want to get through the system, answer the fields anyway. You can add more details or mention a relevant skill if you'd like. Also, make sure you incorporate measurable results into an answer whenever possible. We talked about that earlier. It has to be a result that you can quantify, because data is everything now. So they want to see reduced cost by 20%, increased profit by $2 million, increased productivity so that we are now producing 30% more widget on the line. So it has to be measurable results that you add into the answer. And make sure you include your best skills, like if you wrote manuals, if you trained teams, if you came up with new tools, or if you have a patent or anything like that. Make sure that you put that in those extra fields that they give you. And mistake number 5, don't apply for the wrong job. When people are desperate and they want a job so badly and they've been out of work, they start applying for everything and anything. So don't do that. It's a waste of your time. And your ATS system is just going to kick you out anyway. So it's not a matter of trying to get your foot in the door and moving up, because often that's not a good strategy. So don't waste your time or the company's time by just applying for everything that's out there. Here's the reason why. Because people today are hiring for somebody with that skill set that's necessary for success in the advertised job. They're not trying to experiment. They have a job that needs to be done, and they need to fill that job successfully with a person that can do it. They're not looking for people that have too much qualifications or not enough qualifications. They don't want to pay somebody who's got a law degree to do a supply chain job. And they're not going to teach a college intern how to manage a multi-million-dollar program. That's not going to happen. What they're looking for is the exact person who will succeed and will be happy doing that exact job that they need to get done. So be careful to look at the role before you hit send. Look at your skills, your experience, and that industry. Make sure the job is a good fit for you, and make sure you're qualified to do it. And if you're trying to make a career change, just look at the openings to determine if you need new skills. So if you're an engineer and you're applying for a program management job, maybe you need to get a PMP certificate. If you want to rotate into financial planning, you need some training for that. If you want to move into accounting or go to work for H&R Block, you have to have some accounting experience and education behind you. So make sure you take those courses or get those certs before you apply to any job. So here we're going to talk about the cover letter. There's a lot more information on cover letters than resumes, because resumes are pretty straightforward. You have to match your qualifications and your experience to the relevant keywords in the job description and answer the tricky questions at the end. That's essential. But your cover letter is a way to get the people on the other end, the humans that see your resume, to introduce yourself to them and make sure that you make it memorable and personal, because they see zillions of these and they don't want to look at another boring cover letter. So make sure it's well crafted, that it goes over all the information on your resume and expands it into a guided journey of some of your greatest career and life achievements. When starting to write any cover letter, it's always best to look at that content that you're going to put in the letter and base it on the requirements of the job you're applying for. So make sure there's not a disconnect between your cover letter and what the hiring manager is looking for. So the cover letter is there to convey more personality, more of you. It's your first introduction. And you want them to remember you. They might look at a million resumes, but maybe your cover letter is going to help you to stand out. It has to be unique for each job. Don't try to use a template or try to send out the same cover letter for every job. So make sure your format is also in line with the company and industry you're applying to. There's no official format for a cover letter or the information that goes into it, but your cover letter should be visibly organized and orderly in its presentation. So successful cover letters have a memorable introduction. So you want to talk about maybe a major accomplishment there that's going to catch their attention. So if you, let's say, overhauled entire manufacturing facility, you want to mention that right up front. Make sure that the rest of the cover letter is very specific and organized and tells a story of the work that you did that's relevant and how you solved problems. And also you need to conclude with a call to action. Looking forward to our next steps or something like that. So you want to prove that you're qualified for the job and tell the stories that demonstrate your skills and experience. And I cannot emphasize the storytelling enough. So what to cover? Don't try to fit your whole life and career into the space of a cover letter. It should only be one page. It should be curated. So you're going to go through all of your job experience and you're going to pick out what's relevant to the position. And you want to give the person who's reading it a clear idea of who you are and how you add value to their company. The Society for Human Resource Management did a survey on resumes, cover letters, and interviewing, and found the top 3 things that must be included in a cover letter: how your work experience meets job requirements, how it relates right back to the job description, the posting, how a candidate's skills meet the posting requirements, and why do you want to work here? Give an example. I gave earlier an example of the big GE sign that was on the thruway up in Syracuse, and that was up there for about 50 years. And people passed it all the time. And sometimes people actually would come in for an interview and say, I always wanted to work here ever since I saw the sign for the first time. And that means, hey, they're interested and they dug a little deeper. They found out more about the company. So the cover letter needs to have this information, and let that reader be convinced that you are the right person. And follow the best practices for cover letters. Don't make it up as you go along. Show how you can solve specific problems. Saying you're a problem solver is not helpful. It's a generic kind of empty statement. Don't tell them about your amazing problem-solving skills. Go into the details of a particular specific problem that you were key in solving and how exactly you used your skills to solve it. Maybe there was a problem with scheduling, and you came up with a design to solve that problem, and therefore nobody was late to work or nobody came in on the wrong day. Nobody missed a day off. And so you help the company in keeping their scheduling on target. And if you know the company, if you've done your research and you know that they have a particular problem that you can solve, outline how you can help solve it. I wouldn't go into a lot of detail, but you can offer a suggestion and use an example from something that you've already done. Say, I noticed that you had a problem with scheduling because you talked to a friend that works there and he told you they had a scheduling problem. So you just tell them how you solved it at the last place that you worked. Write like yourself. Don't try to be James Joyce or Shakespeare. You should also pick the appropriate voice and tone for the company. So if you look into the company by doing your homework, that helps you make the right tone for that cover letter. And it might differ greatly depending upon where you apply. So if you're applying for a legal consulting firm, your tone is going to be more formal than if you were applying to a tech startup. So it's very important, I can't emphasize this enough, that you tell a story. Reach back into your career and pick stories to tell. People love to hear stories, and they love to hear stories about you and how your skills helped a company. And give these people some insight into how you work and who you are as a person. So when you're looking for the right stories, always look back to the job requirements, the posted job requirements, so that your stories can relate directly to the requirements. Look into that company, do research, get a sense of the culture. You don't want to get hired and then not be happy in that culture. So before you put your cover letter together, look at your skills and compare them back to the requirement, again, for the job. It says here to use Venn diagrams. I'm not crazy about that, but you can do it. You make 3 circles and you put all your experience in the 2 circles, and then in the middle you put the common experience to the job requirements. You don't have to do that. You can do it any way you want, but you need to identify what skills fall into the common area, overlapping your skills and the requirements of the job. And that's going to help structure your cover letter. So let's say you're applying for a job for a marketing director. So let's say the job requires several years of marketing experience in the field and a deep knowledge of lead generation, which is all marketing's about right now in these days, and strong communication skills. So you would go in there and you would want to, in your cover letter, describe how you did this in your previous role, and how you ran a number of campaigns for your clients and exceeded their expectations of lead generations with specific numbers. Okay, so if they wanted 500 new leads and you got them 750 new leads, you include that in your cover letter. Also, you tell them how you trained and mentored new people on how to manage their own accounts and how to improve their lead generation, and that improved client retention. And why? It was because it was something that you specifically did. And so get into the stories, get into the anecdotes. So we talk about in medicine, anecdotal incidence is kind of not really reliable, but it is when you're talking about a job in a cover letter. So it accomplishes a lot at once. It demonstrates the top skills that you have that are imperative to the job: lead nurturing, showcasing how you collaborate, communication effectively, and how you help new employees on processes, and therefore resulted in client retention. So you're proving in the cover letter that you can meet the communication standards and marketing knowledge that they are looking for. So this is a big one. Don't lie on your resume or cover letter. Honesty is the only policy. Dishonesty on your cover letter is not in your best interest because everything's searchable now. A Google search can bring up your voting records, any kind of criminal records that you might have, DUIs. If you put down a university you never attended, it's easy for them to find out. And also, don't lie about your skills. So any sort of reference to a skill that you don't actually have will come back to bite you. So what if they ask you to use that skill or tell about an example of how you use that skill in the interview on the job? Tell me about that skill. How did you use that in the interview process? If you haven't really done it, it's not good. And try to be diverse in your answers on your cover letter. Use diverse language. Don't use these phrases. They're very overused. Hi, I'm a detail-oriented, multitasking, natural-born leader, and I'm perfect. Okay, that says nothing. You haven't given me any details on that. You haven't told me what you multitasked at. You haven't told me about your leadership skills. You haven't told me about any details that helped the company. They're going to read the same basic cover letter over and over, and you don't want to be the last generic or template or boilerplate email that they read before they go to lunch because they're just going to throw it in the trash. So try to be a little creative with your word variation, and that'll help you stand out against everybody else. So instead of describing yourself creative, try imaginative. Try using inventive, not innovative. You're not determined like everybody else, you're tenacious, or another synonym for that. Go to your thesaurus. You can look these up online. Very simple to find other words. And the reason you want to do that, because these word variations at least show that you can think beyond what the average applicant is willing to do. You are willing to go to the next step.